anywhere by anyone at any time with access to the internet. There is a delay between the meeting and the broadcast on the YouTube channel of approximately 30 seconds. Webcasting officer, please can you commence the broadcast and confirm?
I confirm the broadcast has started.
Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of Full Council on Monday the 22nd of February 2021. Before we commence with the proceedings, I can confirm that the Council has adopted some basic etiquette rules for its remote meetings, and these are as follows. Please only speak when the Chairman invites you to do so. Members, please let the Chairman know that you wish to speak through the chat function. Members, please can I remind you that the Chairman has given separate guidance as to how she will manage the chat function for this evening's meeting. Please can I refer you to my earlier email today, which set out the Chairman's directions. The Chairman will introduce the speakers in the order at which the request has been made, unless there's a point of order at which we will give way. Please minimise all distractions while you are in the meeting. Members are asked to mute your microphones when you're not speaking and to consider turning off your video to reduce any interference on your audio feed. Please bear in mind that there's a slight delay between the speaker and other attendees hearing you. When referring to a report or paragraphs, please quote the relevant page and paragraph numbers. There is no private business for this evening. However, members are reminded it is their responsibility to make sure their venue and connection is private. If members lose connection to the meeting at any point, please rejoin at this earliest opportunity and I will reconnect you as the meeting facilitator. Please only use the chat function for the purpose prescribed for requesting to speak or for a point of order. The chat function is subject to the access to information regimes of FOI, EIR. It is also subject to data protection, rules of defamation and the Council's Code of Conduct. For this meeting, councillors are identified with a prefix of CLLR before the name, and officers have a prefix of officer. The chairman has a prefix of chairman, and the vice chairman has also the prefix of vice chairman. There are officers in attendance and they are identified. There's a minute taker for this meeting and 2 meeting facilitators. Chairman, I can advise that we have received apologies from Councillors Jenny Sandham and Councillor Mick Radley. The meeting is quora and may proceed. I now hand over to Chairman, Mrs. Angela Kilmartin. Thank you, Chairman. Apologies, Chairman, your microphone is switched off. Could you start that part of your speech again, please? Sorry to interrupt you.
Hello, members. My name is Councillor Angela Kilmartin and I am now live. I'm the chairman of the council and I'll be chairing this meeting of Full Council. I'd like to open this virtual meeting of the Full Council by welcoming you all and also the public who are viewing this meeting via the council's excellent YouTube channel. I'm being assisted by a meeting facilitator who helped me identify when people want to speak and manage the notifications through the chat function, which is in front of me. I can't see all of you members because there's a lot of us. So I ask that you do use the chat function to indicate if you wish to speak or raise a procedural point. And can I please clarify that during this meeting, when asked for agreement, silence will be taken as assent on those items we'll be noting. Where a vote is required, these will be conducted using a roll call. At the appropriate time, each member will be called in turn to indicate their vote, and at the end, I will be assisted by the monitoring officer in determining the outcome. This is not a recorded vote, and the votes will not be recorded as part of the minutes to this meeting. The only item currently on the agenda for which a recorded vote will be carried out is agenda item 6, the council budget and the council tax of 2021-22 and the medium-term financial strategy of 2021-22 to 2024-25, and on the proposed amendments as circulated to members in advance of this meeting. If on any other item before this meeting, members do require a recorded vote to be undertaken, then this must be requested in accordance with the provisions set out within the Council's constitution. So now we have 3 hours set aside for this meeting. And I'd be extremely grateful if members could keep their debates concise, and you all know that I mean not repeating what somebody else before you has said. And that assists with ensuring that we conclude the meeting within our time allocated. And I would also add that due to the level of concentration we all require during these virtual meetings, if it's appropriate to do so, I am going to call for a 5-minute recess at an appropriate point in the agenda between agenda points. And in calling this recess, I will have to seek members' agreement at that time. So now, members, please can advise that in order to ensure a fair approach to the debates this evening, I will ask that everyone indicates they want to speak only using the chat function. I will then not necessarily take them in the order they appear, but I'll be using my discretion to take members from each of our political groups in turn, not one block of one or one block of another. Thank you, members. So I'm now going to proceed to the first item of business, which, as usual, is apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillor Mrs. Jenny Sandham. Are there any others, please?
Chairman, we have had apologies from Councillor Mick Radley. Unfortunately, he's unable to be this evening. We have no further notifications to the Governance Service this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So there's 2 absent. If there's no more apologies, I'm going to proceed to item 2, which is minutes of the previous meeting. And so for item agenda 2, members, for this item, I'll be seeking your agreement, and silence will be your assent. So, do any members have any objection to the approval of the minutes as an accurate record of the meeting of full council held on the 7th of December 2020? Any objections, please? No? Thank you, members. Your silence is agreement that the minutes are an accurate record. Thank you. We're going to proceed to item 3 now, declarations of interest. So do members have any disclosable pecuniary interest, other pecuniary interest, or non-pecuniary interest that they wish to declare this evening? Please state the item and the nature of your interest. And I would remind members that guidance on declarations of interest related to the council budget and medium-term financial strategy has already been issued by the monitoring officer. So now, who is going to declare an interest? I've got here Mrs. Powell, Councillor Mrs. Powell. Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have to declare an NPI in item 6. I am the chairman of Halstead Community Centre Charitable Company, and there's some money set aside in the budget for our new community centre. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, please, a non-pecuniary interest in agenda item 6 this evening. The medium-term financial strategy makes notes in section 4.1.1 to the Braintree Museum Trust, of which I'm a council-appointed trustee. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary interest on item 4, as I'm a member of various Facebook groups, too many to mention, and have knowledge of Mrs. Rosie Pearson, a member of the public, who wishes to speak on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Unsworth.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Like Councillor Hicks, a member of a number of Facebook pages. Rosie Pearson is known to me. I'm also an ordinary member of CPRE, which I believe may be relevant to item 6. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Spray.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll declare an NPI in item 8. That's the local plan agenda item. As a non-voting member, I attended meetings regularly of the North Essex Garden Communities Board. That's an NPI. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Agenda item 4. I know Mrs. Rosie Pearson, and I'm a member of a number of Facebook pages, including Better Braintree. Item 6, I will declare, just for clarity, the because of the budget item where we're proposing the amendment on the local highways panel, I am a member of the local highways panel as a county councillor. And agenda item 8, the local plan, I've been involved to varying extents with the local plan throughout, including taking part in the examination on section 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thorogood.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd just like to say in relation to agenda item 4, I am also a member of various Facebook groups, and Rosie Pearson is known to me. And just in case anything involving licensing comes up, I'm a BDC licence holder. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beavis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like to declare an interest in Rosie Pearson, as I know Rosie Pearson personally, and I also post to the Better Braintree Facebook page. I'd also like to declare I am, as County Councillor, a member of the Braintree Local Highways Panel. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Weeks.
Hello, Madam Chairman. Yes, I am a member of the Better Braintree Facebook page.
Thank you. Councillor Bob Wright.
Hello. Item 4, non-pecuniary interest. I am a member of the Better Braintree Facebook page, and I do know Rosie Pearson.
Thank you. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you. An NPI relating to item 6. I know Rosie Pearson. I'm not a member of cause, and I had no advance notice of her question.
Thank you. I think I have now Councillor Butland next.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I declare an NPI in respect of item number 6, item number 8, the local plan. I am still a director of North Essex Garden Communities, which is in the process of being wound up, but I have not as yet received official notification from Companies House that my directorship has been terminated.
Thank you very much. I think that's the end of it all. Can I just want to verify that. Yes, we've done you all. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you. No more declarations. So I'm going to proceed to item 4, which is public question time. Now, there is one registered speaker for this evening's meeting, and that's Mrs. Rosie Pearson, as many of you have said. Mrs. Pearson has submitted a question, which at her request is going to be read out by the meeting facilitator. The question is in relation to agenda item 8, section 1 of the local plan, the planning inspector's final report and process for adoption. Before the meeting facilitator reads Mrs. Pearson's question, can I advise that her question has been made available to all members in advance of this meeting, and it's been published on the council's website, right? So now, meeting facilitator, could you please read Mrs. Pearson's question? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, this is the question submitted by Miss Rosie Pearson of Patterswick about the local plan process. The question starts, when can residents expect an apology from the council for money wasted pursuing the unpopular garden communities and for the speculative development which the unnecessary delays have caused? And what measures will be taken to ensure that in the future councillors listen to residents and make changes accordingly, particularly when they raise valid and evidence-based concerns repeatedly? Chairman, that is the end of the question as submitted by Ms. Rosie Pearson. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Emma. Now, Councillor Mrs. Spray, I think I'm right. I'm understanding that you'll be providing a written response to Mrs. Pearson, which will be circulated to all councillors. Is that right?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I would just like to thank Ms. Pearson for her question and confirm I will provide a written answer at the earliest opportunity. Thank you, Chairman.
Well, thank you, Councillor Mrs. Spray. So, members, that question concludes public question time. And we're now going to proceed to the next item of business, which is announcements and statements from myself and the leader of the council. I start with very sad news that the council lost one of its colleagues, Andy Vodden, who passed away in January following a short illness. Andy joined Braintree District Council over 10 years ago as a duty officer at the town hall, following an established career as an airline pilot. He was a valuable member of the town hall team, known for his friendly nature, good humour and hard work. In his spare time, he also worked for Rain Parish Council and was passionate about keeping the village well kept. He'll be sadly missed by all his colleagues at Braintree District Council, and our thoughts are with his family. I should add that I sent a condolences card myself to the family. I'd like to follow that sad news by paying tribute to, I don't have any personal announcements to make, so I'm being a bit generalized here now, but I want to pay tribute to the medics, the doctors, the nurses, and also to remember the porters and the cleaners. Our hospitals are one massive teamwork, and we are very fortunate in our area to have these dedicated people. And it follows on that we have the same team of dedicated people in Causeway House staff. They've been helping on the vaccination programs. They've done very good hygiene procedures. The masks are all in order. And our council staff has gone through some COVID as well. And people have kept their beam end up. And I want to pay tribute to absolutely everybody. It's a most difficult time, and I hope we're not far off out of it as the summer months come, but to pay tribute to all of you who have been so very helpful. I really do thank you all very much indeed. So that's the end of me, and now I'll invite Councillor Graham Butland, who's our leader of the council, to make any of his announcements. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have one statement which I would like to make to Council regarding the pedestrianisation of Braintree Town Centre. Madam Chairman, you'll be aware that since the summer of last year, the Council has been undertaking the pedestrianisation work within Braintree Town Centre. To date, various parts of the work have progressed on the scheme, including areas of old paving being lifted up, and new areas of curbing and paving at the lower end of Bank Street and the High Street, the introduction of new disabled bays in Bank Street, and a new southbound bus and cycle lane on Fairfield Road. However, many members will be aware of changes to the site that have taken place over the past few weeks, and will have noticed that fencing and machinery have been removed. The Council took the difficult decision to temporarily pause the work being carried out within the town centre. The Council will be seeking to recommence the work as soon as possible so as to enable the completion of the pedestrianisation scheme over the coming months. To that end, the site across the town centre has been made safe and is being closely monitored by a local construction firm until construction work resumes. Whilst the Council shares everyone's disappointment that this will cause some delay to the completion of the project, we believe it is the right decision and in the best interest of the project and works moving forward. We will work hard to get construction back on track as quickly as possible and to keep the impact on residents and businesses to a minimum. As an authority, we remain committed to the scheme. It's been in the pipeline for a long time, and it will play a key part in our town centre bouncing back from the impacts of COVID-19. However, at this moment, the Council is not in a position to comment further, but we will provide update to members, residents and businesses as and when it is permissible to do so. That's the end of my statement, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. I'll now proceed to item 6, which is a recommendation from Cabinet of the 8th of February 2021, the Council Budget and Council Tax 2021 to 22, and the Medium Term Financial Strategy 2021-22 to 2024 to 25. Members, you can see from the published agenda for this meeting this evening, we are only dealing with the council budget, including the recommendations from Cabinet. The council tax resolution, which we would usually set at this meeting, is subject to a separate report, which we'll deal with after this item. The Members, the detail pertaining to this item is set out in the council budget and council tax report, which was circulated separately to the agenda. The agenda contains the recommendations from Cabinet, and there is an amendments pack, which has also been circulated to councillors in advance of this meeting. All councillors have got this pack. The amendments pack sets out the details of the 2 proposed amendments received and includes the technical advice from the head of finance. So now we're going to have a procedural motion. You're also aware there's a procedural motion for this item. Can I invite Councillor Butland to introduce the procedural motion, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move this motion with the support of the group leaders of the other groups as well. The system seemed to work well last year, and there was general agreement that we should adopt it this year. But we do need to formally move in accordance with the Council's procedural rules 7.1, that for the purpose of expediting the business of agenda item 6, Council Budget and Council Tax 2021-22, and medium-term financial strategy 2021-22 to 2024-25, that procedural rules 23.6 to 23.9 are suspended to enable all amendments which have been submitted in time and have had proper notification to be moved and debated together with the substantive budget. Following the full debate, the amendments will be put to individual recorded votes before a final recorded vote is undertaken on the substantive proposals. I so move, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Can I have a seconder?
Yes, I'll second that, Madam
Thank
Chairman.
you.
Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
I'll just speak briefly now, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Yes, I fully support the procedural motion and welcome the consultation that was afforded with group leaders prior to this meeting. It's a very sensible way of conducting this business. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
So thank you. Thank you. So now do any members wish to speak on this procedural motion? Please indicate on the chat function. I don't think so. So thank you, members. No one wishes to speak on the procedural motion, and I'll proceed to the vote. So for this motion, I'll be seeking your agreement, and silence will be the assent. Any member who doesn't agree, please indicate again on the chat function, but I don't have any. So if there's no objection, I want to hear the silence. Okay, I'm hearing the silence. Thank you, members. Your silence is agreement that the procedural motion is approved. So now we're going to go to the budget debate, and I'd like to invite Councillor Butland to introduce the report and set out and move all of the relevant recommendations for full council. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, just over a year ago, on the 17th of February, we met as a council to discuss the budget for 2020-2021. Little did we know that that would be the last occasion that the full council would meet in person. The intervening period has been a year like no other in the memories of most members here this evening. During the last year, over 10,400 of our residents have contracted COVID-19. And regrettably, over 360 coronavirus-related deaths have been registered in the Braintree district. I'm sure, Madam Chairman, I speak for the whole council in expressing our condolences to those families and to the families and friends of those who have died or have been seriously ill. In addition to the health impact on our residents, the district has experienced one of the highest levels in Essex of workers who have been furloughed as a result of the pandemic. This has caused financial hardship for many. A significant number of our businesses, particularly those in the retail and hospitality sectors, have been badly hit by the 2 national lockdowns imposed during the year. Of course, Madam Chairman, it's not only been adults who have suffered, but our children and younger people have missed the benefit of regular full-time education. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused exceptional hardship for individuals, families and businesses, not just in Braintree District, but across the whole of the United Kingdom. The health emergency has been accompanied by unprecedented economic uncertainty and the deepest recession on record. The government has taken extensive action to tackle the virus and mitigate its impacts in what the International Monetary Fund has described as, and I quote, one of the best examples of coordinated action globally. The total spending on the COVID-19 response this year is over £280 billion, of which £113 billion has been additional support for public services. Madam Chairman, it is against this national picture that this year's performance by the Council and its financial plans for the future have to be put into context. In my view, local government has responded superbly to the challenges placed upon it. Locally, we have maintained the delivery of our core services and in addition, taken on many additional tasks to support government initiatives. At this stage, Madam Chairman, I would like to acknowledge the sincere gratitude of the Council to all its employees who have, at no small personal inconvenience, continued to serve their community with such dedication. As regards the proposed budget for 2021-22, as the administration, we have been guided by 4 key objectives in setting it. First, to provide support to our community in what will continue to be a difficult period for the foreseeable future. Secondly, to stimulate and support the economic recovery of the district and the businesses within it. Thirdly, to continue to provide high-quality core services whilst delivering a balanced budget over the medium term. And finally, to move forward on such issues as our climate change strategy. Turning to specific proposals contained in our budget, the full details are as set out in the detailed paper that was considered by the Performance Management Board and Cabinet. I trust, Madam Chairman, that you will be pleased that I do not intend to go through the 124-page document line by line, or indeed page by page. I would, however, like to draw the attention of members to some of the key points within it. In setting our annual budget, there are always some unknowns. However, this year, those unknowns are greater than usual. The major one is how the Council's income generating services and those of the Council's partners, including Fusion, our leisure service provider, will recover, and to what extent customer demand may change in a post-COVID time. As noted in the report at paragraph 2.7, the approach adopted in setting service budgets has been to exclude the potential impact of COVID. Whilst the government has announced some financial support for local authorities to address the potential impact of COVID in 2021-22, it is proposed that a provision is earmarked from the unallocated general fund balance to provide additional financial support should this be needed. It is considered that a sum of £1 million should be set aside in a new earmarked reserve. Another uncertainty, Madam Chairman, revolves around the New Homes Bonus, the NHB. This was introduced in 2011 to provide an incentive for local authorities to encourage housing growth in their areas. From 2017-18, a national baseline was introduced for housing growth of 0.4% of council tax base, below which NHB is not to be paid. The government has retained the option of adjusting the baseline in future years to reflect significant and unexpected housing growth. The government has committed to reforming the New Homes Bonus, and this year will be the final year under the current approach. A consultation document is to be published shortly on the future of the scheme, setting out options for reform. Clearly, this could impact adversely on the future income of the council, and I have to say also present issues for those who are very keen to spend the new homes bonus, but not so keen to generate it. This year, Madam Chairman, we declared a climate emergency and set an ambitious target to make the council's activities carbon neutral where practicable by 2030. We also committed to reducing district-wide energy consumption and emissions and to support our communities to adapt to climate change. To achieve this, we created a community-wide climate change working group who have been busily developing our strategy, a strategy which will be brought to council over the next few months. This is not something completely new, however, to BDC. We have for many years pursued environmentally friendly initiatives. However, now is the time to step up our ambitions. As a result, we are proposing to establish an earmarked reserve of £500,000 to take forward our green priorities, as the action plan emanating from the climate change strategy are determined. Last year, Madam Chairman, Councillor Hicks said he would not be able to support the budget because there was very little in it putting funds to climate change. I hope he will think that £500,000 is an excellent start this year, and I look forward to his support. We will wish, however, to ensure that our priorities harmonise with the Conservative government's forthcoming Environment Bill and proposals arising from the Conservative County Council's Climate Change Commission, of which Councillor Abbott is a member. The earmark reserve shows a real commitment by this side of the chamber to tackling climate change issues and not just political posturing. On a more local scale, we have listened to the views of members with regard to the councillor's grant scheme. As a result, budget provision has been made for this to continue in 2021-22. We also recognise that the pandemic has restricted the ability of some organisations to take advantage of the scheme this year. We will therefore permit any underspends in this year to be carried over into 2021-22. Turning to capital expenditure across the district, the capital budget will include the following projects: a new artificial grass pitch facility at Halstead Leisure Centre at a cost of around £750,000. £100,000 investment in refurbishment of play areas in Witham, Earls Cone, Bocking and Braintree. The upgrading of CCTV equipment in both Halstead and Braintree. I should say, Madam Chairman, Witham is not there because the CCTV in Witham is managed by Witham Town Council. And finally, improvements to the public realm in both Witham and Halstead town centres at a cost of nearly £750,000. Madam Chairman, in these extraordinary times, I'm sure that you would agree that the budget package demonstrates our intention to meet our key objectives. But importantly, to fund the package, we're not intending to raid the pockets of our residents and businesses. We will not be increasing car parking charges, which we believe will help our town centres as life gradually returns to normal. And more importantly, we will not increase our share of the council tax for 2021-22. This decision, together with the budget proposals being considered by Essex County Council tomorrow, I believe demonstrates how both tiers of Conservative-controlled local government in Braintree District are intent on helping members of our community during the COVID recovery period. It is against that background, Madam Chairman, that I commend the recommendations on pages 10 to 12 of the report before Council tonight. I so move.
Thank you very much. Councillor Butland has moved the recommendations, so can I now have a seconder, please?
Yes, I'd like to second that and speak.
Thank you, Councillor Babb, thank you.
I'd like to speak now, if I may.
Sorry, yes, you may.
Okay.
Sorry, carry on.
Okay. Well, Madam Chairman, Councillor Butler has clearly set out the underlying motives driving strategy in our painstaking budget setting process. The pandemic has promoted huge challenges, and this year has been like no other. Well, Madam Chairman, it is with a certain degree of sadness as I leave the Council next month that I now share with you my last budget seconding commentary and reflect upon our budget transition of the 8.5 years that I've been in this role. Government revenue support funding has all but ceased, a reduction of more than £5 million since 2013, and our income now relies solely on locally raised sources from retained business rates, council tax, and income from fees and charges. In the iterative stages of the budget setting process, culminating with Cabinet 2 weeks ago, we examined challenges posed by the medium-term financial strategy, showing shortfalls of £122,000 for 21-22, addressed by withdrawal from unallocated balances. Shortfalls were also projected for the following 3 years of £1.062 million, £292,000 and £89,000 respectively, a total of £1.443 million. For a 0% council tax increase, the shortfall increases by £212,000 to £1.657 million. So we resolved unanimously that this was not the year to raise council tax. Through robust and prudent financial and treasury management, we have comfortable but not excessive reserves that we can draw down from unallocated balances. So we'll be using these to address the budget shortfall in the first instance. Nevertheless, it does compound our running shortfall by just over £200,000, and actions will be necessary to address this. Not easy. And we do face considerable ongoing uncertainty given the fact of the end of the previous four-year settlement, and estimated subsequent shortfalls are likely to be subject to inevitable change given the potential redistribution effects of the Fair Funding Review introduction and the 75% business rates retention scheme next year. But I want to reassure members that BDC has an enviable, robust and enduring record of financial management, guided, supported by highly assiduous, prudent and dedicated officers, not least throughout the current pandemic episode. And a big thank you to you all. So I'd like to end really with 4 illustrations of key achievements. Since 2010, Braintree District Council has found around £15 million through savings, 10 million of that, and income generation, 5 million, to address shortfalls caused by reduced grant, inflationary pressures, increased service demands, and new investment. Secondly, BDC has achieved a balanced revenue budget annually with modest council tax increases. Since 2008, council tax changes have ranged from a 1% reduction to a 3.1% increase, with the average increase over the period of just 1.28% per annum over that time. It is of particular relevance that BDC is always one of the lowest of all council tax authorities. And in the past decade, Braintree Council has increased its council tax by 13.4%, whilst RPI has increased by 32.6%. An overall record few other councils can emulate. Well, Madam Chairman, this is a huge combined team effort of members and officers and endorses my profound feeling of pride in having been deeply associated with one of the most dynamic and demonstrably effective district councils in the UK. Madam Chairman, our medium-term financial setting process continues to be probing, creative, evaluative of impact, and resolutely rigorous to ensure best value for money for Braintree District's council and business taxpayers. I second the motion to approve the recommendations 1 to 22 set out in the report, pages 10 to 12. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bebb. It is Councillor Bebb's last full council meeting, and I cannot let it go without thanking you, certainly on my behalf, and I'm sure all members, for your service to Braintree District Council and for your monetary skills. There is no question we will miss you, and good luck for your future life. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So now, with a few tears in my eyes, I will invite Councillor Abbott to cheer me up as spokesperson for the largest opposition group to respond to the overall budget. Members, Councillor Abbott will also set out and move his 2 amendments, which are contained within your amendment pack. So, Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I shall do my best to cheer you up. First of all, in response to Councillor what Bebb said, I was aware of that because he'd raised it at a Turling Parish Council meeting where I was at. I too would like to wish him all the best for the future. And just to say, I've always found Councillor Bebb very reasonable and a person to deal with in the council, and always very positive. Anytime we've asked him for any information, he's always been extremely helpful. So all the best for the future. Firstly, I'd like to say I agree with the leader on his comments as to the many impacts on the pandemic, on our local communities, and indeed supporting his words on the hard work of Braintree District Council's staff. I welcome the overall approach on the budget in these difficult times. And again, as I do every year, would welcome the budget consultation process. Not all councils have this, where the budget comes to meetings of the Performance Management Board and Cabinet, and we can go through it in some detail and see it as something of an iterative process, and it's very welcome that that still takes place. We too, as in the GNI group, as the main opposition, acknowledge the government support, which has been extraordinary, and as we know, has put the national debt up very considerably. But what was the alternative? There wasn't really one. The government has supported councils and communities through the pandemic. And we also recognise BDC's role in supporting businesses through handling the various business grant schemes. I agree, as I've said previously, that the 0% council tax is the right thing to do this year because of the pandemic, but we do recognise that's going to create some financial challenges in the years to come. You too, Madam Chairman, will be glad to know I'm not going to go through specific line by line every item of the budget, but just one specific is to say we do very much welcome the Council Community Grant continuing. It's a very popular and helpful grant scheme to many local groups and organisations. Right, a little bit of politics now.
Oh dear, you were cheering me up.
Well, yes, only a little bit. I'll try and minimise it. Councillor Butland did refer to political posturing around green issues, I believe. I would like to remind him that I, for one, have been campaigning on green issues for nearly 40 years now. I'm probably beginning to look as if I have as well. And in most of that time, Conservatives have opposed the things we've been saying. So it is welcome that in recent years that has started to change, but there's a long way still to go. In terms of the capital programme, obviously this is a very wide-ranging programme, reasonably balanced all the way from play areas to town centres. And turning to the new homes bonus, which is very specific to our First Amendment, as the leader knows, I've always supported the new homes bonus being used for capital funding and agree it shouldn't be used for revenue support. But we believe, as the main opposition, that this is the right time this year to invest more of it in local projects. The sum we're suggesting of £650,000 does not affect the council tax in any way. So if any member is thinking of saying it might, it doesn't, and finance officers have confirmed that. And it still leaves more than £1 million in the new homes bonus fund. And I think really it's speculating a bit to say that there's not going to be more money that might come into the NHB, but in any case, it's available now. We very much support the £500,000 being allocated to the Climate Change Fund, but as per amendments, we think we should go further. So specific to those amendments, the first one is to put £400,000 into the LHP. Now, I do appreciate the leader has previously set out his reasons why we shouldn't do that. What I would say is let's move on. The LHP, the Braintree LHP, currently has a backlog of perhaps 5 or 6 years worth of projects unfunded. And what we're suggesting is a one-off injection, which would more or less double its budget to move forward some of those valuable local sustainable schemes, such as highway safety, pedestrian crossings, cycleways, etc. And then our second proposal is specific to increasing the climate change fund by £250,000 to do what actually the council's already agreed to do, which is, and I quote, significant increase of tree planting. Community woodlands would do that. We haven't specified how many, that would be up for discussion, but community woodlands would move forward on tree planting by many thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of trees, and it would require that sort of level of investment to see it through. And I won't go through all the things the amendment says, but clearly there are multiple benefits in terms of community woodlands, including public access and ecology. We would argue that there's still a long way to go on sustainability and environmental agenda. Although there are some good things happening, we have a lot of business as usual, a lot of proposals for major road building, a lot of greenfield developments going on in the district, particularly on unsustainable locations, and we face the prospect of an enormous waste incinerator in Braintree district. So we need a major shift in thinking to be more sustainable. I think this budget does, as I said before, make a step in the right direction. All we're saying is let's give it boosters and do a bit more. And we'd like to see a lot more in the future, including a return to the discussion, as we suggested in previous full council meetings, of a fully integrated cycling and walking network. That's all I need to say, Madam Chairman, but I would end by formally proposing amendments 1 and 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Members, Councillor Abbott has formally moved both his amendments. I'm now going to call for a seconder to each individual amendment. If the amendment does not receive a seconder, it will fail and will not be debated further. So, please can I have a seconder for Amendment 1, which is the allocation of £400,000 to the Braintree District Local Highway Panel from the New Homes Bonus. Seconder, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I second the proposal and I reserve my right to speak at the end of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Beavis. Can I now have a seconder for Amendment 2, which has increased the climate change budget by £250,000 to £750,000 from the New Homes budget to fund tree planting and potential new community woodlands? Seconder, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will second that amendment and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much, Councillor Unsworth. So, members, before I open this debate, can I remind you that you're expected to only speak once during the debate? And can I remind members that during this debate, you are speaking on the proposed budget and the 2 amendments proposed by Councillor Abbott? Your speeches should be confined to the matters under discussion and should last no longer than 5 minutes. Hopefully less. Don't repeat, if you please would not repeat what somebody else has just said. But I will exercise my discretion to allow a longer speech if the point is particularly complex or detailed. So now, let me have a look at my chat. Please put down on the chat that you'd like to say something. Who would like to speak on this item? Please indicate. I seem to have here, straight off, Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you,
Councillor
Chair.
Pritchard.
Thank you. Well, what a tough act to follow. 3 very experienced councillors have just spoken to this budget. Sadly, we're going to be losing one of them, so I'd like to thank Councillor Bebb for his hard work over the last 10 years or so on the council in his role, and I wish him well with the future. I think the leader and Councillor Bebb outlined the situation both during the last year and also where the council now finds itself for the next year of this budget, and also the onward strategy plan beyond that. I think the financial strength of this authority is quite amazing, frankly, when you look at the stories that you see around the UK of other local authorities struggling with their finances. To have something as that we do in Braintree, as strong as it is quite unbelievable. And that really is testament to the hard work of past and present members, officers of Braintree District Council, and all the staff who have made this a very effective and efficient operation for its residents. I'm delighted to see that we will not be looking to put up taxes this year. in conjunction with the county. I represent a ward which has diverse economic challenges, and I know many residents in my ward will be pleased to see that feature. I'm also delighted to see as a council that we've been able to contribute to the funding of local businesses, but also distribute the funding and grants that have been provided by government centrally. It's an amazing thing that this country has achieved in dealing with this pandemic, and supporting businesses is key both to the immediate term and also the short to medium term as we come out of this pandemic. And, you know, just to reiterate the figures, I know we haven't actually touched upon it yet. We've helped almost 3,000 businesses locally, I understand. We've distributed almost £40 million, as I understand, of funding. That is quite incredible when you think about it, and it's all been done by BDC staff. When I think also about our coming out of lockdown, which we hope will not be too long now, and the current situation, leisure is going to be increasingly important to our residents as a means of re-engaging with normal life. And so to be able to support our leisure centres with funding to enable maintenance of the existing facilities so that they can open without delay when they're able is incredibly important. It's going to do a lot for the morale of residents, and is going to be an amazing service for them, their children, and as I say, almost without delay, we hope they will be coming back on stream when we're able to do so. But also to see that we're still investing in new things, not just maintaining what exists. To see that we're able to put in a football pitch, artificial football pitch in Housestead. It's just incredible that we're able to pitch for that funding, contribute to it ourselves. It really is a credit to this authority and how this has been prudently managed. So I will be delighted to support this budget at the opportunity we have later. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Now, I've been a bit remiss and not asking Councillors Mrs. Pell and Councillors Mann if they'd like to say something before the rest of everybody goes into a longer list. Councillor Mrs. Pell, would you like to say anything at this point?
Yes, please, Madam Chairman. It's just really to thank the council and all the officers and the other members for the way that we conduct our budget process, that every member has had an opportunity at some time or another to have their say on what they think we should be providing for our district and how we do it. And I think that it's something that other councils don't do, not that I'm aware of anyway. And I really do think that we're very grateful to have that service. So thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Mann, would you like to take up the opportunity now?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We are in many ways an unusual council, in the better sense of the word, and we do much appreciate the cross-party involvement in budget setting and the opportunities for scrutiny that is available to all parties over a long period of time. I think it's very apt that it's been pointed out this is an incredibly exceptional time in which we find ourselves, and in a sense normal budgeting rules don't apply. I think if anything, speakers are underplaying the degree of uncertainty that there is over the next 2 or 3 years in financial terms. And I think against that background, this is an appropriate budget. Both of the proposed amendments have been floated previously in the dialogue and have not found favour amongst the majority of the council. Unusually, I am minded to
to vote in favour of this budget. Traditionally, in opposition, I and my colleagues have abstained because it isn't technically our budget, it's not our administration. But in these exceptional circumstances, we are minded, in fact, to support this budget. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Madam Chairman.
You're very welcome, Councillor Mann. Thank you. I have Councillor Coleridge next.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Firstly, I'd also like to add my thanks to Councillor Bebb for his assistance when I was first on the council. He was my fellow ward member in the Hackle, Pebble and Turling ward, and he was a great help, and I do wish him all the best in the future. In regards to the budget, I welcome the investment in the investment Braintree District Council are putting into Witham, and the work that has been done on both physical improvements and events to increase the footfall into the town centre. It'd be great if the full recommendations from the town centre strategy can be fully implemented to improve the aesthetic appearance and make better facilities for markets and events within the town. I also strongly commend the efforts of Kevin Atwell of Witham Town Council Regeneration Group in working with Braintree Council to drive these very much needed improvements within the town centre. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bohr.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like to speak on the Amendment 2 and also on the main budget. On Amendment 2, I would very much like to be in a position to support the additional tree planting, but I feel this is the wrong time, and the taking out of more money from the reserve, I think, is unwise at this very volatile time. Also, there is quite an ongoing cost of maintaining woodlands properly. On the main budget, I would like to commend this budget, and on particularly looking at it from an environmental point of view. There are other ways that we can and do support the environment. We need a strong economy in order to be able to afford to do that. We've helped people survive by freezing council tax and freezing and lowering licence fees, hackney carriage licences, helping to get businesses back. And we're improving the efficiency and reducing the carbon emissions at Braintree Council. There's now a full-time post in carbon reduction. We'll be reducing repeat call-outs for waste collection by the purchase of a new narrow wheelbase vehicle, cutting down emissions. And there are other ways. We're also encouraging new green business with the Horizon 120 infrastructure works. And the project will also bring new innovative business at the hub building. And additionally, we're putting so many trees back compared with the field that was there. Nothing but a monoculture crop with some trees around the edge. We're putting back many, many times more trees and shrubs, all local species, than was there before. And there's funding for iConstruct, of course, and the BDC contribution towards superfast broadband. We're also helping to maintain a healthy population with the money that we put into Braintree Sports and Health Club improvements and improvements for indoor and outdoor exercise across the district. And speaking directly about environment and place, there is, of course, the £500,000 for funding for climate change initiatives, a whole variety of things, improvements to the John Ray Park, and also Braintree tree planting schemes. So there are a number of ways in which people are involved, but have to finally remind us, sadly, that people can sometimes destroy our local environment. For example, the £15,000 in the 2022 to 23 budget for CCTV in Housestead Public Gardens is made necessary by vandalism and antisocial behaviour. So the environment is all about people, not just particular projects. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wright, I have next.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to speak. I'd like to ask a question on car parking. The Braintree and Witham Times had a 2-page spread detailing the car parking charges for the next 12 months. And I noticed that nowhere in that article was the concessionary rate for 10p after 3 o'clock till 7 o'clock and 10p on Sundays. I mean, if this has been removed, that means that people parking after 3 o'clock, their car parking fee will go up to from 10p for 4 hours to £1 an hour, which is quite a big increase. Can somebody confirm that the concessionary rate has not been removed? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just remind members we're not here to take questions at the moment. We're just debating. So now, Councillor Schmidt, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I must start off by saying that it's either 49 or 50 years, it's so long ago I can't remember which for sure, since I started championing green issues, but that of course as a Conservative councillor. I had planned to ask the Green and Independent Party how they had reached this figure of an increase of £250,000, whether it had been via a careful costing exercise, i.e. you'd found a potential site and knew the cost of it, plus the cost of planting. But Councillor Abbott has already indicated that this is not the case. As this is not the case, then I would remind the Green and Independent Party that we are awaiting the results of the climate strategy, and in tandem we'll be looking at the community woodland paper from Councillor Mrs. Garrett's group. And from that information, we will plan how to utilise the £500,000 that is in this evening's budget. We've been working to make a difference on climate change for a number of years. The strategy isn't just a one-year document. And as it's unlikely that we'd be able to do everything that we wish to do in 1 year, it will be ongoing for the foreseeable future. And I'm sure that further funding will then be budgeted for to cover this. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would just like to say that I was absolutely delighted to see that the budget included a 2% increase in the salary for our staff. Obviously, it's been an extremely difficult 12 months for everyone, and it's been a particularly difficult 12 months for the staff. I know a lot of staff have obviously been working on the front line and putting themselves at some risk, in particularly the waste crews, and I know that they have comments on Facebook and so on that actually people have really appreciated all the effort that they've put in, the way they've gone out, and I don't think one single waste collection has been missed throughout the last 12 months. Also, many other members of staff have been working extremely hard, particularly all those who've been administering all the government grants. And I know that a lot of the, from speaking to them, I know that a lot of the members of the planning team are working late into the evening. Probably many members of staff probably also trying to juggle caring responsibilities as well. I'd like to also make a particular mention for the switchboard, which has operated extremely well with virtually no difficulty to customers. So I'm very pleased to see that this increase in salary is included in the budget, and I think it's well deserved for the staff. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Rose.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. It's not my intention to go through the list of budget proposals, but what I would say is that the Councillor Butland outlined them most clearly. But could I just say that we were not going to increase car parking charges, which will benefit the residents. There is one local authority, not near us, but in the southeast of the county, who have increased quite substantially their car parking fees, probably thinking that when the non-essential shops open up, people will flood in.
but I can't think of a bigger disincentive by council in putting car parking fees up to the amount that they have indicated. Finally, and I make no apologies for that, I've worked with Councillor Bed for many years. Due to the pandemic, we can't meet up. I can't shake his hand, but metaphorically, I would shake his hand. He's been very supportive to me. He's always been available. His knowledge that I've tapped into, and his finance is very sound, and he will be missed. And I would like to publicly record my thanks and wish him and his wife every happiness in their future life. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I hope to speak sustainably by speaking briefly. Just on a point of information, Councillor Smith referred a couple of times to the Green and Independent Party. There is no such party. There's a Green and Independent Alliance of genuinely independently elected councillors. I'm speaking in favour of the second amendment, and I endorse the support of the Green and Independent group for no budget increase given the health and economic emergencies. And I also note with appreciation that Braintree District Council has, of course, declared a climate emergency. But in logic, I would suggest that this indicates we need substantive, strategic and sustainable change. And the proposal that we've made is both significant but discreet, is encompassed by the reserves, and it will help our district to meaningfully contribute to the government's zero carbon future, and also, of course, in the year in which the UK hosts the COP conference. So I would say, if not now, when? And words alone will not deal with, let alone resolve, our declared climate emergency. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schreyer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like to support this budget as proposed, and I would like to highlight the points made by Councillor Butland and Councillor Bebb about the robust treasury management of this budget. And in particular, I think for Halstead to see new CCTV cameras being allocated is very good. And also with what is great for not only Halstead, but I think of all of the villages, the rural villages surrounding, and of course part of my ward is Gosfield and Greenstead Green. I know that this all-weather pitch is going to be great for helping people to progress not only football, but for well-being and keeping fit. And it's providing great facilities for the residents and the surrounding. And the other point is, I think the over £750,000, as Councillor Butland mentioned, securing improvements to the town centre is great. And I think this is obviously being done in conjunction with collaboration with Halstead Town Council. But I think that this is going to encourage our communities all around, and especially help the footfall and the visitors back into our high street as COVID-19 hopefully will be unlocked to the timetable, and we can look forward to bounce back in better across the district. So thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Mary Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I thoroughly support keeping council tax at its present rate. I think it's important to acknowledge the enormous difficulties that residents have faced in all sorts of challenges, particularly home educating their children. We know this council continues to work closely with our local schools and education providers, helping to fund initiatives to support skills and help our secondary schools with providing careers advice. As the economy changes, this support will be needed, and it is good to see that both Essex County Council and BD, or Braintree District Council, are committed to this support. Can I just mention the excellent Essex County Council initiative of providing 5,000 reconditioned laptops to aid homeschooling, and one of the businesses supporting this was one of our own local Braintree businesses, General Geek, situated on the Springwood Industrial Estate, who used their expertise to wipe and clear the old memory of the laptops ready for their new use. I think this is a fantastic form of recycling, providing so much benefit to our schools and residents at a very difficult time. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Thorogood, you've asked to speak. It says here briefly. Hello.
Hello, yes, I will be brief. Yeah, well, I just want to say, once the Rivenall incinerator is built and operating, it would be almost impossible, I would say, for Braintree District to reach the zero emission targets. It's going to emit 500,000 tonnes of CO2 a year, and it requires 6 trees to capture, if you like, 1 tonne of CO2 emissions. So therefore, 3 million trees are required to offset it. And to give you a sense of scale, Epping Forest has 55,000 trees. So that's why I would like to see an increase in the amount we're spending on the climate change crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Tattersley?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I have to say that I'm disappointed to say that in this time of severe disruption to public services, employment and finances, the only proposals from the opposition is to subsidise the County Council's highway maintenance programme and to plant some trees, especially as I see there's no practical suggestion as to whose land or where these trees are to be planted or maintained. I wasn't going to say this, but a suggestion I heard in the budget scrutiny discussions from the Performance Management Board was to cut the budget for the staff annual pay award by 50%. Thankfully, this was not progressed. In my opinion, the staff have been outstanding during this pandemic and their efforts should be recognised, not penalised. Madam Chairman, I will not be supporting these amendments.
Thank you. Councillor Van Dolken has come in very quickly. Councillor Van Dolken?
Thank you very much, Chairman. And I too would just like to take the opportunity to thank Councillor Bebb for his work during the time I've been involved with council, and indeed a resident, which is a lot longer, and wish him well. I support the budget this year, and I just would like to add in support of something that one of my colleagues mentioned, that Essex County Council has many of its initiatives have come down to us, and in the most recent time we are now getting much more of the potholes filled. I think this originally comes from the government, but Essex is getting £13.8 million worth of the pothole monies from the government £500 million scheme. And I just read today that Essex Highways is doing a lot of work next week in our area. So that's just another, I think, indication of how everybody's pulling together to get things done. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. You're all coming in a bit late. I've now got Councillor Tom Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would just like to respond to a couple of points made during what's been a very good budget debate this evening. Firstly, in response to Councillor Wright's point about parking charges, I understand that the statutory parking order relates to statutory tariffs and not concessionary rates, concessionary offers in terms of parking. So therefore we can confirm that the 10p after 3 concession will continue and will be absolutely invaluable, hopefully, in encouraging more people into our town centres as we come out of lockdown conditions. Obviously hopeful that the positive news and the positive roadmap outlined by the Prime Minister will come to full fruition by the summer, and that will help encourage people back into our town centres. Madam Chairman, I think Councillor Schmidt would agree with me that our approach to parking compares very favourably with other local authorities, in particular Liberal Democrat Chelmsford City Council, who at this moment in time are proposing increases in charges to Highlands Park car parking, a wonderful visitor attraction, which I know many in the district of Braintree venture over the border to. I would just like to make a brief point about some of the comments made and some of the achievements in our budget regarding supporting the economy, supporting our town centres, and Councillor Bohr hit the nail absolutely on the head. You need a strong economy to cope with the challenges that we all face in the future. And I must make a plea to all councillors in this council chamber, when pursuing certain items of interest on their agenda, let us not forget the economy and keeping people in jobs and in work. Beneath the headlines in this budget, there are revenue and pots of money that will support economic development, support skills initiatives. We will continue at pace with those in the next year. But Madam Chairman, it has been disappointing in the past when this authority has committed to capital expenditure and levered in up to £7 million to support the Enterprise Centre at Horizon 120. It's very disappointing when members such as Councillor Thorogood vote that down. If we are going to recover fully, we need to attract inward investment. We need to have that programme of support that allows individuals to change careers, change jobs, and create new jobs and opportunity in our area. Then the whole area prospers. So it's vitally important that all members do consider these wider considerations. After all, Madam Chairman, for many thousands of residents in our district, the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic may only just be beginning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members. Well done, everybody. Now, Councillor Bebb exercised his right at the beginning of the debate as a seconder to speak then. There are now seconders to each of the amendments who haven't spoken in the debate and have reserved their right to speak. So I'm going to bring them on now if they still would like to. Councillor Beavis, you haven't spoken yet in the debate and you've reserved your right to speak. Would you like to speak now?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I would like to speak. Thank you very much. Before I enter into my speech, I just wanted to agree with members this evening at how well the council officers and indeed the executive have carried out this budget proposal. And as previously said, we don't have that luxury in many councils around the country. So I do thank the executive team for that. My purpose of seconding the Amendment 1 tonight is on the grounds of highway safety. The additional funding would mean that schemes could be agreed at speed. There were 1.4 million unallocated schemes on the panel papers of the Braintree Local Highways panel on the 28th of January this year. That doesn't include schemes that have come forward, and there are many of them, since the 28th of January. We've heard this evening that we are a dynamic council, and I would like to add my name to those members this evening that have spoken in the praise of Councillor Bebb, a colleague I've had the privilege to work with in Cabinet for many, many years. But Madam Chairman, there is a crisis in this district, and we are a council that adapts to crisis, and that crisis is road safety on the roads of our district. I wanted to just finish my words this evening with a letter that I've received in the last few days that's quite similar to many letters that I receive as a county councillor in this Braintree district. My disabled husband and I were waiting to cross the zebra crossing on Colchester Road at the top of Nethercourt, and we were nearly knocked down by a 4x4. I was wearing a bright purple jacket, so there was no excuse. I am worried about this crossing, as it is supposed to be a safe place for us to cross. There is nowhere else close for us to cross to get to the cemetery. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Beavis. It's nice to see you. Keep going.
Thank you.
Councillor Unsworth, have you not spoken yet in the debate and you've reserved your right to speak? Would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
I'm speaking in support, seconding the Amendment 2 for the woodlands.
Yep.
I'd just like to put this in terms of context, which support more woodland. Our council declared a climate emergency in 2018, aiming for carbon neutrality by 2030. Trees and woodlands are part of climate change mitigation, with a typical tree absorbing some 21 kilograms of CO2 a year. our council passed Trees, Hedgerows and Woodlands Area motion on the 16th of December 2019, agreeing to further significantly increase tree planting in Braintree districts on public and private land. Our council also has a policy, albeit within the local plan, that hopefully will get adopted soon, in so much as the planning authority will encourage landowners to retain, maintain and plant native trees, woodlands, grasslands and hedgerows. The planning authority may also make grants in appropriate cases. COVID has prevented a lot of planting trees and we need to pick the pace up. So this increase in the climate change budget actually glues these aspirations together. In asking for an additional 250,000 planting trees is not merely a case of buying trees and digging them a hole. There are other costs involved, and we have looked at them, contrary to what Councillor Smith says, and that's why we're asking for an increase in the climate change budget. These costs include land purchase, such that BDC can acquire land specifically for the creation of woodland. There is no point in looking for land if we have no budget. Design costs and consultancy to ensure woodlands planted in the right way in the right place. Machinery costs, ground and site preparation, planting costs. And as I said before, it's not just a tree, there's protection, spirals, shelter, stakes and ties, fencing and post and wire if we're going to fence it off. And although labour is usually fairly cheap because there's a very big volunteer base that I would like to continue to support. There's also the maintenance and upkeep of such places. As Councillor Bohr has mentioned, this needs to be accommodated within the budget and has been allowed for, or should be allowed for. Consequently, it's quite clear that the £15,000 identified within the current budget is low. As we have heard, there is no impact on the council tax for this increase, and this leaves over 1 million unallocated. From a broader perspective, increasing our budget provides a buffer for the environmental bill, allowing BDC to accommodate any impact of this bill confidently and within budget. Support and extend the strong network of volunteers. It will help deliver broader sustainable developments, improve air quality, protect biodiversity and habitats, and improve our environmental stewardship. It will also dovetail with the EEC policy on forestry, on the Essex forestry policy, and their emerging climate strategy. And it will also enable BDC to adequately fund our upcoming action plans linked to our climate change strategy that do include tree planting. To answer a few points, Councillor Bohr, when would be the right time? We need to start thinking about this now and the future, our future needs, as well as our ongoing well-being, and this has a measurable impact. Councillor Schmidt mentioned the £500,000 budget in the line item. Surely she must know that some £150,000 of that has already been allocated. So it's not really a full £500,000, is it? We can be ambitious. We can lead the way. After all, we are aiming to become carbon neutral by 2030, 20 years ahead of the national target. There is ultimately no reason for this to be refused. So I ask the Council to support this amendment to the budget. I'd like to close with a quote from the Woodland Trust. Planting a single tree has benefits for people, wildlife and the environment. Planting those benefits vastly increase when planting a whole woodland. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And now, Councillor Abbott, would you like to speak to us?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll keep my comments very brief in response to just a few points that have been made. I thought it was rather interesting that Councillor Butland and Cunningham were picking out various GNI members on the basis of how they voted in last year's budget debate. That's a bit of a novelty, that. Not quite sure why they did that. I'm sorry that Councillor Tattersley is disappointed in us as the opposition. He said he was disappointed because he didn't want us to subsidise highway maintenance. Well, as a cabinet member, I would have thought Councillor Tattersley knows that the local highways panel doesn't do highway maintenance. It does capital projects for safety and improvement schemes. Highway maintenance is a completely different budget. And he says he's disappointed that we haven't talked about all the things the council's done to support local businesses. Actually, most of my speech was about that, agreeing with what the council had done. So I'm really not sure where he was coming from. Councillor Bohr said this is the wrong time to take money out of reserves. We're not proposing to take any money out of reserves. We're proposing to take the money out of the New Homes Bonus Fund, which is a specific unallocated fund for capital schemes. So, you know, some of the administration members are actually accusing us of things we're not intending to do. we need to compensate for not just the climate emergency, but also the fact we have lost trees. As members will know, I've stood up many times and raised concerns about the significant loss of trees and hedgerows, particularly on development sites. So here we are as a council, we can help to compensate for that. Councillor Schmidt asks, why £250,000 for woodland planting? Well, we think that's about the right amount. And as you'll know from the amendment, we haven't specified one woodland or two woodlands or three woodlands. It's a sum of money over and above the 500,000 specific community woodlands. That sum, I think, is appropriate. Personally, I've been involved with the planting of a number of woodlands, including the James Cook community woodland near Witham, some nearly 3 decades ago now, and that is about the right sum of money where we could establish some community woodlands. It also, if members agree to the £250,000 for the woodlands, it gives headroom in the climate change budget to spend on the things that Councillor Unsworth identified, plus some other things. Finally, Madam Chairman, I would say, why is the administration, finding reasons not to do this? I thought we were an ambitious council. Now, Essex is proposing its forest initiative, the Essex Forest Initiative, wonderful scheme. As a county councillor, I support it. Why aren't we doing the same in Braintree District, saying we're going to plant woodlands? Essex County Council has its climate change strategy and we have ours. This fits perfectly with both of those. And finally, community woodlands are extremely popular. We can draw on volunteer support and enthusiasm for improving biodiversity. So let's be ambitious, and I hope all members of the council can support this very actually modest proposal in terms of the overall budget to support the LHP and to support community woodlands. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abbott. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And may I begin by, because this is the only opportunity I will have at full council, to thank David Bebb for his many years of service as a member of my cabinet, a conscientious, hard-working and loyal member of the cabinet. And to wish him and his wife and family as he moves on. I suppose as a custodian of the money, he's picked a time when unfortunately we can't go out for a drink with him, so that saved a few bob, David, in a good treasurer role. But also David's done a lot more than just be a member of this council. He's done a lot for community service and of course education. And he was recognised for his services to education with the award of the MBE in 2011. David, thank you on behalf of all members and particularly on behalf of myself as leader during that time for all the work, support and effort that you have put in whilst a member of this council. If I can now just move on to summing up, I think it's been an excellent debate. We almost avoided politics. Then just at the end, Councillor Abbott, and I don't blame him, that is his job as leader of the opposition, and his new Green member, sorry Councillor Walsh, but he started as an independent and became a Green, and sometimes we can't tell the difference. So I do apologise that we called you the Green and Independent Party, but from where we are, it is sometimes difficult to tell the difference between you. I just want to respond to the two amendments. First of all, on the issue of the £400,000 to the LHP, members will know, and that I have taken a very consistent line on this, that this is the role of the county council, that the county council reduced the budgets for the local partnerships, and therefore I was not one who felt that we should pick that up. I'm delighted that I think that message has got through to the county council, and my colleagues who are on the county council no doubt may see some of the outcomes of the strong representations. Indeed, my stubbornness to refuse to put money in may well see that that has paid off, but that is something, of course, that members will have to wait until tomorrow for. But I think they will be as delighted as most people in what may emerge from that tomorrow. On the second issue of the £200,000 for trees, we agreed to set up a climate change working group. We brought in a lot of members, not just councillors, but people from outside. And I believe Councillor Unsworth attended a few of those meetings. And they have come forward with a suggested strategy, which we have agreed, at least amongst the group leaders, as to how we will tackle that we will discuss that before the election as a draft. We will then consult with stakeholders, and we will come back into hopefully the June Council to sign that strategy off, and also with an action plan. And that action plan will need to determine priorities. And as Councillor Abbott has said, yes, the County Council has committed, if my memory serves me right, £1 million to tree planting. It was done last year. And my understanding is that over 36,000 trees have been planted this year. Now, I would think most people would want us as local authorities to work together on taking that forward. So I think there's some discussion to be held. I think there may also be, I can't prejudge what the County Council's budget is, but there may also be some suggestion of funding for climate change. If the County Council were to announce that at some time in the future, I would want us to work very closely with the County Council, maybe pooling our budgets so that we actually get a combined approach to these things. But just to say, well, let's just follow this one, that may be the priority. Planting of trees may be the priority. There may be some other easy wins that will come up. I just think we need to give courtesy to the people who've been working on Councillor Mrs. Smith's working group on a climate change strategy, to give them the courtesy for that to be considered by Council before we start determining what the priorities are. So I don't think on either thing there is much between either side of the Council. On the issue of the local highways panel, yes, there should be more money. I think the County Council should be putting it in. Councillor Abbott and Councillor Mrs. Beavis believe it should be this Council picking up the financial costs that should be with the County Council. But we both agree it's needed and the work is needed. So, not a lot between us there. And we also all agree that, yes, tree planting is an important, and I think I forget exactly which member said it, but on the opposite side, but said it was a part of the Green Initiative. And that's right, it is part. It's not the only solution. So again, I don't think there's much between us as well. So in summing up, I would ask Council to support the main proposals of the budget, to reject the two amendments, not in principle, but because of what I have set out. One, I think the County Council needs to put its hand in its pocket and put back the money that it took out. And secondly, on the issue of trees, that we afford the courtesy to the working group before we start spending some of the money. And we have put £500,000, and there will not be many district councils of our size that will put £500,000 in their budgets this year for climate change. I doubt whether there will be any at all. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all of you, all the councillors who've participated. Every single contribution has held interest, and I can tell by people's faces that we have all been listening very carefully. So we're now going to proceed to a recorded vote on the amendments. Each amendment will have its own recorded vote. And so I'm now going to hand over to Andy Wright, our Chief Executive, to conduct the recorded vote. Andy.
Thank you, Chairman. So we'll take Amendment 1 first, which is about the allocation of £400,000 to the Braintree District Local Highways Panel from the new Homes Bonus. As usual, I'll call out each councillor's name, and if you can make it clear whether you're for, against or abstain. Councillor Abbott.
For.
Councillor Bohr.
Against.
Councillor Beavis.
For.
Councillor Bebb.
Against.
Councillor Bowers.
Against.
Councillor Butland.
Against.
Councillor Coleridge.
Against.
Councillor Courtauld.
Against.
Councillor Mrs. Cunningham.
Against.
Councillor Cunningham.
Against.
Councillor Dervish.
Against.
Councillor Eusden,
Against.
Councillor Everard,
Against.
Councillor Garrod,
Against.
Councillor Hensman,
Against.
Councillor Hicks,
For.
Councillor Horner,
Against.
Councillor Hume,
Against.
Councillor Johnson,
Against.
Councillor Kilmartin,
Abstain.
Councillor Mann,
Against.
Councillor McArdle,
Against.
Councillor McKee,
Against.
Councillor Parker,
Against.
Councillor Pell,
Against.
Councillor Pritchard,
Against.
Councillor Raymond,
Against.
Councillor Ritchie,
Against.
Councillor Rose,
Against.
Councillor Santamoro,
Against.
Councillor Scattergood,
Against.
Councillor Smith,
Against.
Councillor Swear,
Against.
Councillor Spray,
Against.
Councillor Tattersley,
Against.
Councillor Thorogood,
For.
Councillor Unsworth,
For.
Councillor Van Dulken,
Against.
Councillor Wallace,
Against.
Councillor Walsh,
For.
Councillor Walters,
Against.
Councillor Weeks,
For.
Councillor Wilson,
Against.
Councillor Wrench,
Against.
and Councillor Wright.
For.
Okay, thank you, members.
Thank you, members. The result of the vote on Amendment 1 is for the amendment 8, against the amendment 35, and 1 abstention. What? Correction. Against was 36. Okay. So Amendment 1 is lost. Now I'm going to hand over to Andy Wright for the recorded vote on the second amendment. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to remind members, this is on an increase to the climate change budget of £250, again from the new homes bonus. Councillor Abbott.
For.
Councillor Ball.
Against.
Councillor Beavis.
For.
Councillor Bebb.
Against.
Councillor Bowers.
Against.
Councillor Butland.
Against.
Councillor Coleridge.
Against.
Councillor Courtauld.
Against.
Councillor Mrs Cunningham.
Against.
Councillor Cunningham.
Against.
Councillor Dervish.
Against.
Councillor Eusden.
Against.
Councillor Everard.
Against.
Councillor Garrod. Sorry, Councillor Garrod. Could...
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Hensman.
Against.
Councillor Hicks.
For.
Councillor Horner.
Against.
Councillor Hume.
Against.
Councillor Johnson.
Against.
Councillor Kilmartin.
Abstain.
Councillor Mann.
Against.
Councillor McArdle.
Against.
Councillor McKee.
Against.
Councillor Parker.
Against.
Councillor Pell.
Against.
Councillor Pritchard.
Against.
Councillor Raymond.
Against.
Councillor Ritchie.
Against.
Councillor Rose.
Against.
Councillor Santamoro.
Against.
Councillor Scattergood.
Against.
Councillor Smith.
Against.
Councillor Swear.
Against.
Councillor Spray,
Against.
Councillor Tattersley,
Against.
Councillor Thorogood,
For.
Councillor Unsworth,
For.
Councillor Van Dorken,
Against.
Councillor Wallace,
Against.
Councillor Walsh,
For.
Councillor Walters,
Against.
Councillor Weeks,
For.
Councillor Wilson,
Against.
Councillor Wrench,
Against.
Councillor Wright.
For.
Thank you, members. Same.
Thank you, members. So the result of the vote on Amendment 2 is for the Amendment 8, against the Amendment 36, and there is 1 abstention. So therefore, Amendment 2 is lost. Following this recorded vote on the amendments, I can confirm that they are both lost and will not form part of the substantive budget motion before members. So can I now please invite Councillor Butland to close this debate as the proposer of the recommendations and resolutions. Thank you, Councillor Butland.
Madam Chairman, if I may, Councillor Butland closing.
Right, Councillor Butland, you've already done that.
We can move straight to the vote.
So we're going straight to the vote.
Thank you, Chairman. So this vote is on the recommendations and resolutions as set out in the Cabinet recommendation report. Councillor Abbott.
For.
Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor Beavis.
For.
Councillor Bebb.
For.
Councillor Bowers.
For.
Councillor Butland.
For.
Councillor Coleridge.
For.
Councillor Coulthard.
For.
Councillor Mrs Cunningham.
For.
Councillor Cunningham.
For.
Councillor Dervish.
For.
Councillor Eusden.
For.
Councillor Everard.
For.
Councillor Garrett.
For.
Councillor Hensman.
For.
Councillor Hicks.
Abstain.
Councillor Horner.
For.
Councillor Hume.
For.
Councillor Johnson.
For.
Councillor Kilmartin.
Abstain.
Councillor Mann.
For.
Councillor McCardle.
For.
Councillor McKee.
For.
Councillor Parker.
For.
Councillor Pell.
For.
Councillor Pritchard.
For.
Councillor Raymond.
For.
Councillor Ritchie.
For.
Councillor Rose.
For.
Councillor Santamoro.
For.
Councillor Scattergood.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Swear.
For.
Councillor Spray.
For.
Councillor Tattersley.
For.
Councillor Thorogood.
Abstain.
Councillor Unsworth.
For.
Councillor Van Dorken.
For.
Councillor Wallace.
For.
Councillor Walsh.
For.
Councillor Walters.
For.
Councillor Weeks.
For.
Councillor Wilson.
For.
Councillor Wrench.
For.
And Councillor Wright.
For.
Thank you, members.
Thank you, members. So the result of the recorded vote are for 42, against none, abstentions 3. So the recommendations and resolutions have been approved. Thank you, councillors. Now I'm just going to take, my monitoring officer is right with me. I am going to consider at 9 o'clock having a recess now, because I suggest that number 7 on the agenda might take a little more than we can hold out for, if you get my meaning. So I'm going to call a recess for 5 minutes now. That just means a very quick trip across the corridor. All right? I'll see you in 5 minutes.
Chairman, before members depart, please can I ask the webcasting officer to suspend the broadcast on the YouTube channel and confirm, please?
Broadcast commenced.
Thank you, members. Thank you for the opportunity of taking a 5-minute recess. It's now 5 minutes past 9. All members are in attendance. The meeting is quorate, Chairman, so you may proceed. Thank you.
I'm mute, but I'm not mute any longer. Thank you very much, everybody. Really good that we've all come back nice and quickly and we can make a good start again. So item 7 on the agenda is the establishment of a council tax committee. This item is set out on pages 13 to 16 of the agenda. And I'd like to invite the leader of the council, Councillor Graham Butland, to introduce this report and to move the recommendations set out on page 13 of your agendas. Councillor Butland, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would have put money on no one dare coming back late after you told us what to do. Right, as far as item 7 is concerned, this shouldn't take very long. Normally, members will recall you would have had a schedule before you today, which would have shown for each of the council tax housing schedules what the tax would be for the relevant parish town council, Braintree District Council, Fire and Crime Commissioner, Fire Commissioner, Police Commissioner, and also Essex County Council. Because Essex County Council don't meet until tomorrow and therefore have not yet passed their budget, we haven't got the Essex County Council figures, which are a not inconsiderable amount of the total. So we will need to add those figures in as and when they become available tomorrow. And we will need to approve that so the council tax resolution is properly forwarded and, if you like, becomes legal. The suggestion we have here is rather than call the whole of the council back, that we set up a council tax committee. I think we did this about 5 or 6 years ago when a similar situation in terms of timing of meetings happened. And that committee will meet on Wednesday. And rather than Widdicombe-ise it as officially we should, again, the group leaders agreed that we would all attend. So the committee will be Councillors Abbott, Pell, Mann and myself. And basically, we're not expecting to meet for more than 5 minutes, just to formally pass the council tax resolution with the Essex County Council element of that in it. So I therefore move, Madam Chairman, the 3 resolutions that are on page 13 of our agenda and set out there. I won't bother to read them. I so move, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Members, Councillor Butland has moved the recommendations set out on page 13 of the agenda. Can I now have a seconder, please? Who is seconding?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'm seconding it.
Councillor Raymond? Is that
Please,
Councillor
Madam
Raymond I have? Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Raymond. Do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
Yes, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Now, do any members wish to speak on this item? If you do, please indicate by the chat function. I've got Councillor Abbott. Would you like to start out, Councillor Abbott?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Just very briefly, I support this proposal. Obviously, it's necessary in a mechanistic sort of way. And also support the way in which the composition's been handled. I was just wondering for future years, it might not be possible, but whether it is possible that far in advance to timetable our budget meetings always so they're after the county council's budget meeting. It might not be possible, but just a suggestion.
Right, thank you very much. Now, Councillor Raymond, you seconded the recommendations. I don't have anybody else up on the screen. Would you like to speak now?
No, Madam Chairman, as of this moment, I wouldn't.
Thank you very much. I have nobody else wishing to speak, so I'm going to proceed straight away to the vote. The recommendation is set out on page 13 and it's been moved and seconded, and we'll be conducting the votes by way of a roll call. And I'll now hand over to Andy Wright again.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is a roll call on the establishment of the Council Tax Committee. Councillor Abbott?
For.
Councillor Ball?
For.
Councillor Beavis?
For.
Councillor Bebb?
For.
Councillor Bowers? Councillor Butland.
4.
Councillor Coleridge.
4.
Councillor Courtauld.
4.
Councillor Mrs Cunningham.
4.
Councillor Cunningham.
4.
Councillor Dervish.
4.
Councillor Euston.
4.
Councillor Everard.
4.
Councillor Garrod.
4.
Councillor Hensman.
4.
Councillor Hicks.
4.
Councillor Horner.
4.
Councillor Hume.
4.
Councillor Johnson.
4.
Councillor Kilmartin.
4.
Councillor Mann.
4.
Councillor McCardle.
4.
Councillor McKee.
4.
Councillor Parker.
4.
Councillor Pell.
4.
Councillor Pritchard.
4.
Councillor Raymond.
4.
Councillor Ritchie.
4.
Councillor Rose.
4.
Councillor Santamoro.
4.
Councillor Scattergood.
4.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Councillor Swear.
4.
Councillor Spray.
4.
Councillor Tattersley.
4.
Councillor Thorogood.
4.
Councillor Unsworth.
4.
Councillor Van Dulken.
4.
Councillor Wallace.
4.
Councillor Walsh.
4.
Councillor Walters.
4.
Councillor Weeks.
4.
Councillor Wilson. Councillor Wilson. Are you back with us? Thank you. Councillor Wrench.
4.
Councillor Wright.
4.
Thank you, members.
Well, you'll be surprised to know that my mathematics keeps up with me, and the recommendation has been approved because it's unanimous. Whoa, there's a thing. Thank you, Councillor Butland and members, and we're now going to proceed to item 8, section 1 of the local plan, the planning inspector's final report and process for adoption. Members, this item's set out on pages 17 to 91 of your agendas. That's a lot. I would like to invite Councillor Mrs. Gabrielle Spray, who's the Cabinet Member for Planning, to introduce this report and to move the recommendations set out on pages 17 and 18 of the agenda. So, Councillor Spray.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and you will be delighted, I think, to hear that I don't intend to make a very long introduction, given that we still have some way to go on this meeting tonight. I think, members, I can keep this fairly short on the grounds that section 1 has been debated and consulted on extensively, and I'm sure, in fact, I would expect that all members to be pretty well aware of where we are with section 1 of our draft local plan. The Inspector Roger Clues issued his final report on the soundness and legal compliance of the local plan for North Essex. He considered all the consultation responses on his recommended main modifications and also on the latest government household projections. So with the incorporation of the inspector's final and slightly adjusted set of recommended main modifications, which, just to remind you, in case you should forget, included the removal of the Colchester-Braintree borders and the west of Braintree garden communities. Having done that, he was able to find section 1 of the local plan sound and legally compliant. So it is all that remains now is for us to adopt it, if that's what council decides to do this evening. The modified version of the section 1 local plan is attached to this report. It includes his main modifications as recommended by Mr. Clues, and a number of minor modifications which were agreed by the officers of all three authorities, and those members are mainly modifications to changes in the text resulting from the removal of 2 of the 3 garden communities. The local plan subcommittee considered the findings of the inspector's report and the main modifications at its meeting on the 4th of February. And a unanimous recommendation was made that full council approves the recommendation set out within this report. I am just going to read through briefly those 3 recommendations. They are that Council A notes the finding of the Planning Inspector's report on the examination of the North Essex Authority's Shared Strategic Section 1 plan received on the 10th of December 2020 and his final schedule of recommended modifications. B, approves the formal adoption of the modified North Essex Authority's Shared Strategic Section 1 plan attached to this report, which is the new Section 1 local plan incorporating the Inspector's recommended main modifications in accordance with Section 23(3) of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004. And finally, C, and this was a recommendation which came out of the local plan subcommittee meeting, expresses its huge disappointment that the examination of Section 2 has been delayed by the Planning Inspectorate and instructs the portfolio holder for planning to write to the Inspectorate, urging it to see if there is any way in which the examination can be brought forward. I so move, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Spray. Members, Councillor Mrs Spray has moved the recommendations set out on page 17 and 18 of the agenda. Can I now have a seconder, please?
Yes, Councillor Wrench, Madam Chair.
Thank you, thank you. Do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
I'd like to speak briefly now, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Yes, yes, that's all right. Carry on.
I'd just like to echo point C, really, that it is a great disappointment that the delay has come to review Section 2. However, I'm sure other members will agree that once Councillor Spray has written her letter, hopefully the Inspectorate take a kind view of her letter and do speed up the process, because I do feel that for the district itself, we certainly need a swift return from the Inspectorate. But that's all I have to say at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else want to speak on this? I have Councillor Abbott already on my chat. Yes, Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We agree that the need now to get on and adopt Section 1 and to move to Section 2 as soon as possible. We strongly support the administration pressing for the Section 2 examination to be brought forward from July to minimise delay. It's inexplicable why that extra time span has been put in. However, whilst we now need to look forward, I repeat my invitation to the administration to recognise and indeed apologise to the people of Braintree District for the costs, years of delay and the pressure on greenfield sites around villages caused by the flawed New Towns project. This was never about the principles of garden communities, but the evidence that there was there to support 3 very large garden communities which were in reality new towns. Now, there have been some unfortunate comments made by some administration members about the local plan inspector. I read every word he wrote in his responses, his formal responses to the local plan, and I would say he did his job. That's all he was doing. He was asking for evidence to support 3 new towns, and it was not there. There was only the evidence to support 1. Now, the Conservative administration were told several years ago by the inspector, in effect, that they needed to think again. But they ploughed on and even claimed it would be a matter of a few months to get things sorted out. Yet now we are facing the prospect of not having an adopted local plan until 2022. However, as I said, we now need to move forward, and I do hope that this administration will take communities with it this time in getting to the finishing line of getting an adopted local plan. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. I have Councillor Unsworth next.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Within the Section 2 of the local plan, there was enough houses to meet the need. Can Councillor Spray confirm whether or not there will be a call for sites? I think tendering went round it a different way and felt it was legal not to. They felt it was legal not to. But will there be a call for sites within the consultation process as we move forward?
You finished? Thank you. No, I have.
Oh, sorry, Chairman. Do you want me to respond?
Yes, yes, please do. I have nobody else wishing to speak at this point.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you, Councillor Unsworth. We don't believe that at this point that we need to put out an additional call for sites. Ultimately, it will be for the inspector, when he does get around to examining Section 2, to advise us on our housing numbers strategy and how we do that going forward. But at the moment, there is no intention to go out for a call for sites. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have no other councillors wishing to speak, and so I'm going to move to the vote. The recommendation is set out on pages 17 and 18 of the agenda. It's been moved and seconded. We'll be conducting the votes by way of a roll call, and I will now hand over again to our Chief Executive, Andy Wright. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Chairman. Yep, so the vote on the adoption of the local plan. Councillor Abbott?
For.
Councillor Ball?
For.
Councillor Beavis?
For.
Councillor Bebb?
For.
Councillor Bowers?
For.
Councillor Butland?
For.
Councillor Coleridge?
For.
Councillor Courtauld?
For.
Councillor Mrs Cunningham?
For.
Councillor Cunningham?
For.
Councillor Dervish?
For.
Councillor Euston?
For.
Councillor Everard?
For.
Councillor Garrett?
For.
Councillor Hensman?
For.
Councillor Hicks?
For.
Councillor Horner?
For.
Councillor Hume?
For.
Councillor Johnson?
For.
Councillor Kilmartin?
For.
Councillor Mann?
For.
Councillor McCardle?
For.
Councillor McKee?
For.
Councillor Parker?
For.
Councillor Pell?
For.
Councillor Pritchard?
For.
Councillor Raymond?
For.
Councillor Ritchie?
For.
Councillor Rose?
For.
Councillor Santamoro?
For.
Councillor Scattergood?
For.
Councillor Smith?
For.
Councillor Swear?
For.
Councillor Spray?
Sorry, for.
Councillor Tattersley?
For.
Councillor Thorogood?
For.
Councillor Unsworth?
For.
Councillor Van Dulken?
For.
Councillor Wallace?
For.
Councillor Walsh?
For.
Councillor Walters?
For.
Councillor Weeks?
For.
Councillor Wilson?
For.
Councillor Wrench?
For.
Councillor Wright?
For.
Thank you, members.
Once again, thank you, members. Thank you, Councillor Mrs Spray. We are unanimous. This is an exciting evening as far as I'm concerned. Thank you, Councillor Mrs Spray and the members. We're now going on to item 9, which is the Cabinet Report to Full Council. I don't think we've got a time problem, but I'm just going to check with my officers. I think we'll carry on. Yes. During this item, members, you may put questions to the leader relating to a portfolio, the powers and the duties of the council or the district. Where a verbal response cannot be given in response to questions, a written response will be issued by the relevant cabinet member. So I'm going to allow as much time as we can. We've got 45 minutes pretty much, and we're doing so well. Normally we allow a period of an hour for this item. I may use my discretion as we go through to extend it a bit more if we need to. But again, members have been wonderful. Your cooperation to be concise has been just great all evening. So I have high hopes that we might get done. So I'm now going to invite Councillor Butland as leader of the council to introduce this report. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have nothing to add to the report other than to apologise for members for bombarding you with emails at different times of the day and evening. But I felt it was important that as community leaders, you should have all the information. So I hope you found it of interest, and it has slowed down a bit now, thankfully, but I will continue as soon as I receive any information to send it on to all members. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Butland. Do members have any questions for Councillor Butland or any other member of the Cabinet? If you wish to speak, obviously use the chat, which we're all used to now, and I'll take each member in turn as they appear on the screen. And I do have Councillor Abbott first.
Excuse me, Chair, and I do apologise to interrupt, but you do actually have Councillor Spray who wants to update her report.
Oh.
So would it be advisable to take Mrs. Spray first?
Good idea to do it now. Okay, Councillor Spray, you've got an update.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just very briefly, something positive to add to my report, in that Braintree District Council has made it to the national finals of the Royal Town Planning Institute Awards. We are finalists in the category Excellence in Planning for a Successful Economy, and this relates to the Horizon 120 Business and Innovation Park. Our submission is a joint one from us and Stratton Parker. We won't know the final results until 29th of April, but I think it's a great acknowledgement of the high standard of the scheme and a compliment to the work of everyone involved. So that was all I wanted to add. Thank you, Chairman.
Absolutely brilliant. If we were all together, I'd be leading a round of applause for people. This is really good. Pat yourself on the back. And I'll now go back. Well done, Councillor Spray, and everybody, all the officers as well.
Chairman, again, sorry to interrupt you, but we also have Councillor Smith who wishes to update her part of the report as well,
Councillor
please.
Schmidt would like to say something now?
Yes, please, Chairman.
Okay, I'm being ever so nice. Councillor Schmidt, you're next then.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, you kindly usually give us a chance if we have something to update. First of all, I just comment on the question that was asked during the budget debate. I was going to come back during this report to give the answer on the misapprehension about the 10p after 3. But as Councillor Cunningham's done it for me, I will have more opportunity to draw your attention to page 96 of your agenda. Retiring staff. It's quite an extraordinary figure to see there, that between December and March, we will be losing 3 members of staff who between them had 128 years worth of knowledge and skill. This is quite extraordinary, and you can imagine the hole it's basically leaving. And so I'd like to take this opportunity to wish Dave Jarvis, after 38 years work with us, John Goldsmith, 48 years work with us, and Dave Chaplin, 42 years worth with us, and thank them for the wondrous service they've given, and they will very, very much be missed. I also am delighted to give you some new information, members. Despite the burden, the extra additional burden that the Environmental Services Department have been under this year, they have continued to work on the climate change, as we have done for many years, and we have achieved yet another grant of £129,000 from the Office of Low Emission Vehicles, which will allow us to install another 4 electric vehicle charging points. 3 of them will be in Witham, the White Horse Lane car park, Newlands Drive and Mill Lane car park. And there will also be one at Braintree train station. So again, I applaud the staff for finding time to still chase after grants to help us with our green agenda. That's all, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And another Cabinet member has asked to speak. So I'm going to ask Councillor Bebb if he'll come in next, please.
Purely to just reflect again on the fantastic sterling effort, long hours worked by officers, particularly the Revenue and Benefits team, on the distribution of grants. Before Christmas, I was attending a meeting of similar portfolio holders across Essex, and everyone was commending how hard their Revenue and Benefits team had been working. It reckoned before Christmas there had been 25 grant initiatives, with often businesses ringing up the council just as the grants were announced by the government, and council's been asked, so how do I apply? How much is it? How do I do it? Our council staff have worked really, really, really hard, very responsively, working very, very long hours right throughout the week, the weekends, to get the money out very, very promptly. And I'm sure many businesses are very appreciative of that. not least of obviously for the NHS test and trace payments. Again, there's for people who are in lockdown and who are on benefits, there's a grant they can apply for £500. I just want to also finally mention the Local Council Tax Support Hardship Fund. We've used up 93% of the £827,000 of that at £150 per working age claimant. That's 5,500 recipients of that grant. So well done to all the revenue and benefits team and all the staff involved for getting that distributed. Thank you.
Thank you. I've now got a little posse appeared on my screen, and so I'm going to start with Councillor Thorogood.
Thank you very much. My first question to Councillor on February the 3rd, I asked the Council's Performance Management Board how much had the North Essex Garden Communities project cost Braintree Council, including staff costs. He said that he would send me the details that had already been stated. I didn't get them, but the governance officers did send around an email with all the answers to questions asked at that evening. And the answer to my question was this: in respect of the Council's contributions towards the costs arising from the NEGC project, they were reported in the full Council on the 1st of June 2020 and set out in the minutes. Now, in the minutes, it says Braintree allocated £950,000 to the NEGC project, but it doesn't state whether that is the staff costs were separate, which I think they are. So I still would like to know the answer of how much did the NEGC project cost Braintree Council in terms of staff costs, especially the 2 years of work they carried out after the planning inspector found the plans unsound in 2018. So that's my first question. My second question is also relating to the Performance Management Board, to Councillor Smith. That evening I asked a question on the revenue in respect of a saving of £55,000 due to Braintree Council's investment in the Ipswich incinerator. I asked how this saving was made, e.g. through landfill saving, sorting saving or reduced gate fees, and whether the investment meant the council was contractually obliged to supply a level of waste for incineration. Councillor Smith said the question would be answered in a written statement because I previously asked a question about the incinerator, and usually the written statement answer was published or sent out the next day, but it didn't answer my questions relating to my questions on the evening of the February the 3rd. So I would still like an answer to those if possible. And just lastly, again to Councillor Smith, recently the Essex Association of Local Councils held a conference on the climate crisis, and it became apparent at the crisis that Braintree District Council has a very poor reputation on climate change matters when compared with other Essex authorities. And I'd just like to ask her why she thinks that is. Thank you.
Councillor Schmidt, would you like to reply now or would you like to do written response?
I'll do a written response because the answer is quite lengthy that I've got here. And I just will reiterate, we have not put any money into an Ipswich incinerator. I can't answer the comments about the Braintree Council having a poor reputation on green matters because obviously I don't know any context to it. I will need some context. Anyone can say anything like that, but I'd like to know in what context and what facts, please, before I can answer that.
Thank you. I next had Councillor Abbott, I think. Was I right, Councillor Abbott?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I've got 4 questions. Do you want me to put them all together or separately?
I don't know. Only you know what you want to do.
I'll do them separately then. First one is to the leader of the council. In his report, he mentions obviously the COVID issues and all the hard work that's going on, and he mentions some communication issues from the NHS. But I hope he would recognise the absolute excellent work of the NHS and over 2,000 volunteers in Essex in rolling out the vaccinations. Does he have any further information on if we will get any further vaccination centres in Braintree district, particularly thinking about the north and also villages to the east of Witham?
That's one question. You got three more?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, wait, Councillor Abbott, do you want to ask all four together, or would you like Councillor Button to do one at a time after you?
Could I do one at a time, please?
Yes, Councillor Button then.
Yes, there's no doubt about it. The communication from the NHS has not been good. Certainly things have improved, and I join Councillor Abbott in the way in which now, particularly once the Great Leys racecourse opened up as a mass vaccination centre, it has got a push. I am still concerned that too many of our vulnerable, particularly in the older age range when it started out, were being asked to travel significant number of miles. And indeed, I know there's a member of this council, I won't name them today, who was told that they should go to Colchester Football Club until I suggested they might want to go back, and they ended up going to the racecourse. So that was a 6-mile journey as opposed to a 16-mile journey. So there have been some teething problems. And in the north, the northwestern bit has been quite difficult, simply because, of course, a number of residents there are registered with Suffolk practices, and so that has been another difficulty. To the best of my knowledge, I have no information that there will be any others, but following previous form, it is usually only announced the day before by the NHS. So I can't help, through you, Madam Chairman, I can't help Councillor Abbott any more on that.
All right, you can help me by asking his second question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My second question is to Councillor Schmidt. Can I recommend and support her report, in particularly the rollout of the small waste electrical goods campaign? Her congratulations for the long service employees, remarkable service over so many years, and also her additional information on electric charging points. My main question is, I noticed she in this report and others, she reports on enforcement activity against fly tipping. But what would her view and Braintree District Council administration's view be if, in the forthcoming County Council review of waste recycling centres, there was any reduction in service in Braintree District?
Councillor Schmidt, would you like to answer? All right.
It's difficult to answer because it's not something that's in my gift. I mean, we'd have to wait and see. I know no more. Oh, Councillor Abbott maybe knows more than I do, but I've not heard of anything, and I hope it doesn't happen.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Question 3.
Yes, we're getting there. Question 3 is to Councillor Spray. In her report, and I recognise this, she talks about the pressure on both the planning enforcement and the planning teams. But can she say what the administration's plan is to increase capacity, and particularly in planning enforcement? I know it's an issue we've raised before, and this is not anything against the staff who are working very hard, but can she update us on where we are in capacity for planning enforcement?
Councillor Spray, would you like to answer now? All right.
No, I can give Councillor Abbott an answer now. Appreciate the question and the sentiment behind it in not criticising the staff. It is recognised by the planning development team that there has been a sort of lag, really, in increasing support for the enforcement team. We've boosted up quite considerably the staffing levels for the planning team. There is money in the budget for an additional staff member for enforcement, which is much needed. The only reason it hasn't happened is because of the pressure on the team dealing with the impact of COVID on processing planning applications, conducting site visits and so on. However, I am pleased to say that the recruitment for an additional staff member is top of the list. It is imminent, so I hope we will have some good news fairly shortly to boost the staffing levels for that team, who are under pressure. Councillor Abbott will know they are a very small team, and we've actually had quite an increase in enforcement complaints over the last sort of 9 or 10 months, but it's underway. It's underway, Councillor Abbott.
Thank you. Councillor Abbott, number 4.
Yes, last one. You'll be glad to know, Madam Chairman. Question to Councillor McKee. He mentions in his report the new BDC website. What feedback is he getting on the new BDC website? And is he aware of the difficulties on the search function when people are looking for relevant things? You tend to put into the search function what you're looking for, but lots of other things come up which are not what you're looking for.
Councillor McKee.
I'll answer the first part. The feedback has been positive on the changes, particularly on the multi-platform use of the website, which was poor before and now it's much better. And in fact, it benchmarks extremely well against all of the other local authorities. I am not aware of the search function. And if you'd like to drop me a line, a mail after this, I'll look into it immediately after this meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I've got Councillor Wright. You've been very patient. There's a whole line of you.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a question for Councillor Spray. Due to the delay in the local plan part 2, 546 houses have been granted planning permission in Silver End, where only 150 houses would have been in the plan if part 2 had not delayed if part 1 had not delayed part 2. Would it be safe to assume that no more new developments in Silver End will be granted planning permission before part 2 is approved? Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to respond?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Wright, thank you for your question. I cannot, and actually nobody could guarantee that Silver End or actually any other part of the district is not going to get planning permission, regardless of the status of the local plan. So even when we have a fully found sound local plan, sections 1 and 2, we can't stop developers, landowners coming forward with applications. They are perfectly entitled to do that. Of course, we don't have to give them all permission, but we have to have very solid planning grounds in order to refuse them. And we will continue to refuse unsuitable applications where we have the grounds to do so. Obviously, once we have a fully found sound local plan, that gives us additional protection. But no, I mean, I simply can't sit here and say, no, you're not going to get any more development in Silver End. And actually, any planning officer would say the same thing. Thank you.
Councillor Answorth, thank you very much, Councillor Spray. Councillor Answorth.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. To Councillor Bebb, I think it is, during the Performance Management Board, we reported a saving from the investment in the waste management recycling facility. Shall we use that phrase so we don't confuse everybody? And there's no detail behind it as such. Is the saving from landfill? Transport? I notice you've identified some costs, but more than anything else, I'd like to know more about the actual investment itself. How long is BDC committed to this? Does it benefit from reduced gate fees that encourage incineration? What is the obligation in terms of the contract, and what happens if we don't deliver waste to the waste management facility? I appreciate your position, and this is the last one, so I'm more than happy with a written response to that. And another question to Councillor Spray, if I might. I'll ask her again about Woodhouse Farm and what the position on that is. And also, I've received a couple of queries from my constituents objecting to planning applications, and I'd just like her to clarify the position that when what happens with objections to planning applications when decisions are likely to be made by officers and the delegated powers that are coming up. What happens to those objections, and how can we ensure that these residents are heard? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Spray, do you want to?
Yes, I can respond. Thank you. Councillor Answorth, I'm not, as always, going to make comment about any enforcement issue in the meeting. I will get an update for you on Woodhouse Farm. As far as objections are concerned, regardless of whether an application is going to come to committee or not, it is perfectly possible for anybody, whether it's a parish council or a resident, to put a comment on the website in the appropriate place for whatever they want to make an objection to. All comments are looked at and taken note of by officers and by, I hope, by ward councillors, and everything is taken into account. So the fact that the scheme of delegation has changed does not alter the fact that it is accepted, and it is to be hoped that people will put comments, whether it's in support of or objecting to applications, on the website. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Now, Councillor Schmidt has indicated she's got a response that she'd like to say. Councillor Schmidt.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Unsworth's question just now regarding the recycling. Again, it falls into part of the question that Councillor Thorogood gave. I've got all the figures. There are too many to give you here. But I would just like to point out that perhaps it's a bit late in the day to start questioning this contract when Councillor Unsworth was chairman of the Performance Management Board and could have called this in at any time and had great detail given to that board if there were concerns about it.
Hear, hear.
Thank you.
May I respond to that, please, Madam Chairman? Very briefly.
Yes, a quickie.
Thank you. Just to point out that the decision to invest in it was made while we were in lockdown, and I remember taking the call to have the decision made by executive powers while I was parked up in my car. So I didn't have a lot of choice in the matter at that particular time. It was made on executive powers, and quite rightly so. The question I posed was about the contractual side of it.
Point of order, Madam Chairman.
Just a minute, Councillor Unsworth. Councillor Button's got a point of order.
This is questions to the Cabinet member. The Cabinet member has responded. It's not an open debate.
Right,
Councillor
thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate that. But I'd just like to clarify, my question was a contractual question about the investment to Councillor Bebb,
Chairman,
not returning the
No,
Thank you.
Councillor Unsworth, I'm stopping that. I've got enough people to go on with, all right? And Councillor Everard is next.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I hope this is not out of order, but I would like to register my appreciation of all the years that I've worked with Councillor Bev on various committees, subcommittees and whatever, but I've really appreciated that work. Thank you.
That's very nice. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I'm sure you're finding out, Councillor Bebb, that we all think you're just the greatest. Now it's Councillor Beavis. Councillor Beavis?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've got 3 questions. The first one is to Councillor Tattersley. Before the pandemic, there were approximately 3,000 per week young children in swim school in our leisure pools. And you know, that sport and physical activity gave them a lot of personal space in non-academic skills, which in some respects is quite a release for them. What actions is Councillor I do apologise, Councillor Tattersley taking to encourage children back into our centres when they're open, and to provide confidence to the parents that our facilities are indeed safe? That's my first question, Councillor Tattersley.
Yes, and I understand the question fully about that. The one thing that I can say is that when we had the last lockdown, the use of the swimming pools, particularly by schools, quickly got back to what we can regard as being normal. So that's quite reassuring. We've also improved an awful lot the communication that we had difficulty with during the first lockdown. We have improved on that significantly. If you've got concerns that some of the schools might be concerned, I think it might well be that we can do a press release to them and explain to them, as soon as the leisure centres are starting to open, we can outline the sort of precautions that we've put in place to make sure that people using them are safe. I don't think it's the pool itself. I think it's the changing facilities that's the issue, and we need to address that.
Thank you very much.
My second question to Councillor Tattersley, Chairman.
Right.
Okay, thank you. And that was on page 99 of the agenda papers. And it's to do with the fusion contracts specifically, and the point that Councillor Tattersley makes about the maintenance and compliance of the buildings and the grounds. I wonder whether we could perhaps have a bit more data on that when it's available. I appreciate that's going to be a written response. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Yes,
yes, of course. We are. I think the compliance check is a little bit open to misinterpretation. I mean, the buildings themselves, when you've got a big pool of water like we've got in a humid atmosphere, if we're not very careful, then that building can quickly deteriorate, and we need to make sure that the stuff that we need to be making sure that the pool is still safe, that the chlorination levels are right, and the heating's still on. But so far as the longer term arrangements there, officers are working through that, and of course I will be reporting that back to members. But it may be a couple of months down the line before that comes forward. We need to find out how long the government are going to continue providing some support, whether in fact Fusion want to retain the contract, and whether there are other players who would be willing to take it on. So a lot of work to do, but I will be reporting that back.
Okay,
thank you very much. Councillor Walsh, I'm inviting you to ask your question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've got two questions to Councillor Spray, but I'll ask them separately. By word of introduction, I would just like to emphasise that neither are party political, in case another leader is having trouble telling the difference. Both of my questions are about process. The first one, Councillor Spray, is may I confirm that the District Council does intend to comment to the Environment Agency? As you know, they intend to apply to Essex County Council for a large 20-year flood alleviation scheme that will reshape much of the landscape between south of the Blackwater River, between Bradwell and Coggeshall, going all the way across the Essex Way to Coggeshall Hamlet. And would you agree to consider asking the Environment Agency to confirm that they will indeed abide by their written commitment given last year for the chair, and this came from the chair directly in a letter to me, to hold the two public meetings that were promised in Fearing and Kelvedon and Coggeshall. She said they planned to hold those public meetings before any application was submitted. But recently, one of her colleagues in the regional office have indicated they don't intend to do so.
Councillor responding?
Yes, Chairman, yes, it is the intention of this council to respond. With regards to the public meetings, I will find out about that, but obviously public meetings are difficult, if not impossible thing at the moment in the traditional sense. So I can't actually answer that part of your question right now. I will find out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Walsh, did you have a second part?
I do, thank you very much. Yes, it concerns the local plan, and I just, the statement from Councillor Spray, helpful as ever, seems slightly different in tone to that by the council on page 25 of our papers this evening, which refers to the huge disappointment about the delay in resuming the planning inquiry on section 2 of the local plan. So I wonder, therefore, given the intended letter, when does the council hope the inquiry might be brought forward to from early July? And the second part of this is, could I respectfully ask, what is the basis of your confidence that the local plan can actually be adopted before the end of this year? Because realistically, it's very often the case with planning inquiries on complex matters that there's often delay, even if we might hope there isn't. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Right, Councillor Walsh. Well, I can't give an answer to that first question. You know, we can't even be sure that the inspector or the inspectorate will agree to move forward the date of the public examination. I hope it might be possible, but I don't know. So your guess is as good as mine, quite frankly. If let us suppose that it does stay with early July. It is not anticipated that the examination of section 2 will take a great deal of time, certainly not as long as section 1, maybe a couple of weeks. There will then be a 6-week public consultation, which is mandatory. And then the inspector will come back with any views as a result of the consultation, and we can then bring it to council. Well, it'll go to local plan subcommittee first and then council. We are hopeful that we can get this through by the end of this year, but obviously as regards dates and so on, we are entirely in the hands of the inspectorate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rose has something to ask of Councillor Ritchie, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. It's regarding the councillor's community grant. Would the Cabinet portfolio holder for communities, culture and tourism agree with me that the councillor's community grant scheme has benefited many smaller community organisations since its introduction? However, possibly due to the pandemic, the take-up by community groups appears to be less than in previous years. Would the cabinet member perhaps like to speak to the community managers and staff who've done an excellent job over the last year, because many work from home, done a very good job? Would he like to consider promoting the scheme, perhaps through places like the libraries or large shops, somewhere where the community can see that the scheme is still running, because a lot of them haven't applied. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. I absolutely agree. The scheme has been a huge success, and I think it's going to be even more of a success and of utmost importance as we emerge from lockdown over the next few months. I will speak to the team just to ensure that we are publicising it as far and wide as we can, but I think there's a real piece for us to do here as councillors. It's called the Councillor Community Grant Scheme, and I think in our own parishes, towns, etc., there's probably a piece for us to ensure that people know that this scheme is still open, it's still viable, and actually, as we've approved the budget this evening, a really good point that we can roll over any unspent allocated funds from last year into this year. So that should add to some people's pots of money. So we can look to kind of fund some of those projects that might be asking for maybe some enhanced funding. But then, like I said, there was a piece around it's a council's community grant scheme. We should be championing it as far and wide as we can. But I will speak to our community teams to see if there's anything we can do to make sure that the word is spread far and wide. Thank you, Councillor Rose.
Thank you very much.
Can I just come back very quickly?
Ever so quickly.
Okay. Would the cabinet member realise that members can aggregate their grants, because it's not being too parochial, that if you've got an underspend, you can then pass it on to another councillor to make a reasonable amount?
Thank you, Councillor Rose. I will get something out to all members just to remind them what the remits and the parameters are of the grant scheme. But you're absolutely right, you can pool funds with other members across this council. The key feature is that this grant scheme has to have benefits to those that live in the district. So you can do it across towns and villages as long as it has that benefit. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Right,
thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Now, I have a couple more people who've come in a bit late. We've got 15 minutes left. If you ask your question, might you be satisfied with a written reply? I'll start with Councillor Hensman.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. It's just to Councillor Tattersley, following the announcement from Councillor Schmidt that Dave Jarvis has finally retired from the council after so many years of service. I'm not sure if it's been realised that he was assisting me with the Access Group, and he was instrumental in that group, because the council prides itself in being very supportive in diversity and so on, including the one that's showing at the back of me, which although it affects 550,000 people a year, 8 out of 10 people have never heard of it. So my question is there going to be a replacement such that the Access Group can continue? And and we can continue to offer the service that we are, as diverse and supportive as this council has always been. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie, have you got a quick reply?
Tattersley might have.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm not really sure. I think it'll be form a feature of the interviews when we come to replace Dave Jarvis to see if we can attract people that have got a similar sort of interest. But it is almost a very voluntary activity. But I take the point on your point is well made.
Are you done? No, you've muted. Are you right? Thank you, Councillor Euston. A quickie.
Yes, a quickie, Madam Chairman. Very nice. I'd like to get confirmation from Councillor McKee that Careco have in fact completed their purchase for the site on Horizon 120 on the 1st of February, and also to say how good it is that Essex X-Ray have also completed and expect to start construction in the next couple of months. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Euston. Yes, I can confirm that Careco have in fact signed their contract, and therefore that is leading to a capital receipt land sale to another of businesses, and of course it brings jobs and future council tax and so on. And things are quite well progressed with in this an unknown business that we expect to have very good news probably before the next full council meeting on a third business that's going on to the Horizon 120. So it's proving to be very successful and offering a location that's both attractive and price sensitive, and therefore we look forward to a very successful Horizon 120 take up. Thank you for that.
Thank you. And Councillor Parker is the last person I'm calling.
I should be very quick, Madam Chairman. Just a quick question for Councillor Ritchie. I was really interested to read in your report about the community transport and how important it's been, the community transport has been for getting people to their vaccinations. I was just being interested to know whether that has actually sort of been on top of the normal service, and whether I hope that our partners in Essex County Council will recognise how important, how vital that service is for our residents.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Parker. Absolutely. I mean, I've got some updated figures on top of the figures that are in my portfolio report this evening. There's an additional 130 that we have taken specifically to vaccination centres across the district, from the north right through to the south. And that is on top of the normal requests that we get for community transport, albeit on a much scaled down single journey basis at the moment due to COVID restrictions. But the key point is that when you can't do what you do what you can, and we've absolutely provided an invaluable service to some vulnerable members across our communities, some quite elderly people too, in ensuring that they meet their vaccination invites across the district. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Now, members, again, I'm sure you realise if you've got any questions, do please submit them to the relevant Cabinet Minister or member even, and responses will be issued to you in due course. So thank you, Councillor Button and members, and we're now going to proceed to item 10, which is a list of the public minutes published since the last council meeting. Members, are there any matters you'd like to raise arising from the published minutes as set out on page 105 of the agenda? Anyone have any matters arising from those published meetings? And if there aren't any, I'm going to take silence as your agreement. So do I take it that the report has been noted, members? I'm listening for nothing. Right, thank you very much. Your silence is agreement that the minutes are noted. And I am thrilled to bits with the way everybody has behaved, including myself. I haven't done anything really bad. And it's coming up to 10 past 10, which is a few minutes in advance of our concluding time, which we had set at 10:15. And I am very grateful to my officers. My brain's going at this time of night. Very, very thankful indeed to everybody who has made this such a secure and pleasant meeting. And thank you to all the members of Cabinet and the members of oppositions and all the members everywhere. We've had a really good meeting and it concludes our business. Thank you to the press and the public and those watching on YouTube. We hope you've enjoyed this as well. We've all learnt a lot. So I'm therefore going to close the meeting at 10:09, and I'm going to hand over to the meeting facilitator to conclude the closure. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, before I ask the webcasting officer to terminate the broadcast on the Council's YouTube channel, please can I remind you that the Council will retain performance data relating to your connections to this meeting. This is held in the event that we have a legal challenge to the way we've held full Council this evening. Members, thank you very much for your attendance this evening. Thank you very much for your cooperation, and I would like to invite members to leave the meeting. Good night, members. Thank you.
Good night, Emma. Thank you.